Hello, everyone.
This is Smoke the Podcast, Episode 9.
How is everybody doing? Well, as usual, thank you for tuning in. Smoke the Podcast, really appreciate it. We have a lot of fun doing this, and, hopefully you guys have a lot of fun listening. Anyway, today's topics... Actually, before we do today's topics, we have a special guest.
We do.
Our cousin, Anthony.
Hello. How you guys doing?
Anthony's new to podcasting, so he might be a little shy. But we're going to try to get him to join in our conversation.
I'm a shy guy.
So today we have the smoke of the day, which is Avo Uvezian, classic number 2. And hopefully I didn't butcher that name too bad. The whiskey in the glass is the Nikka coffee grain whiskey, and not coffee as in the stuff you drink in the morning. I believe that refers to the distillery or the style.
Okay.
And the triggered firearms topic of the day is a very common question that gun owners get. Why do you need guns? And questions like that. So we're going to be addressing those.
Yeah, those are some common questions. Good questions, though, to ask.
So let's get into the smoke of the day. I was actually in charge of getting the smokes today, which is unusual because Ryan is usually the cigar guy.
Yep.
But I'm going to give you a rundown. I actually went to a shop, brick and mortar shop, with Anthony to pick these up today. So the description from Cigars International is the Avo Classic cigar is a beautifully constructed piece from the very finest premium leaves, including a silky Connecticut shade wrapper and Dominican long filler leaves. The result is a creamy, smooth taste and wonderful aroma. Secure yourself a box of these today and rest assured you've always got a great blend to rely on. So I'm about halfway through the first third, maybe a little bit less. It lit really well, really easy, really good draw, and it's burning a really clean line right now. The creaminess is definitely there. That's what the salesman told me today, that this is a little more creamy than, I believe he suggested, Oliva, Connecticut.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far...
It kind of does remind me of that, or even a nub as well.
Yeah, I would say a nub.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I definitely agree on the creaminess, on the draw. It was told it's sold as a medium cigar. This seems pretty. I mean,
I'm not mild cigar.
Yeah, mild, but I mean, it seems heavier than I thought it would be.
Yeah. The first thing I noticed is, even though it is Connecticut wrapper, it is pretty dark for Connecticut.
Yeah, I would actually, I would
have never guessed just by looking at it.
Yeah, like I told you guys when we opened them up, because they came in the tubes, I was like, wow, that's a really dark Connecticut or mild cigar, man. And
this is a pure Dominican tobacco. Connecticut wrapper. It's a Toro shape, so 6-inch by 50 ring gauge.
Okay, so a little longer than we usually smoke.
Yes, and because it's such a deep topic today, I think we need a little bit longer smoke.
Yeah, a little bit longer of a smoke, absolutely.
These are currently going for about $50 for 5 on Cigars International.
Wow, okay.
And they were about $12 from a brick and mortar store.
Yep. Okay. That's actually similar to the Cigar International price if you factor in the California tobacco tax.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, that's actually not bad. So that's about a $10 cigar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely not a bad smoke. I'm not a big cigar guy, and I've listened to the podcast a couple times here and there.
Yeah.
And one thing they did not mention, which I feel a lot of people who don't smoke cigars that often would say, is if you like the cigar, you tend not to spit.
Oh, yeah.
Notice that?
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, that is correct.
Like when you're enjoying the cigar, you don't feel the need to have to spit,
Yeah.
And I feel like this one's going to be pretty good on that.
Yeah.
That there's a combination
of the cigar and then that, and you're burning it too hot.
Yeah, so I think people that tend to spit a lot, maybe try just puffing it a little slower.
Yep.
And cooling down your smoke just a little bit would help on that.
Yeah.
But
That
I
is
also do agree that does happen. If you have a bad smoke, regardless, it's just like, it's going to make you want to...
I just got to get this out of my mouth.
It gives you a very bitter taste sometimes.
Yeah. Well, okay. What's in the glass today?
So, Anthony was in charge of getting the whiskey, And we had the idea of getting a Japanese whiskey in honor of Ryan going to Japan next week.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, I'll be heading out to Japan next week. So.
And just a quick thought, I was just thinking, why don't you try to pick up some Japanese cigars?
Oh yeah, while I'm over there.
for the trip
Okay.
back.
Yep. I did that in Italy, so I think it definitely is a possibility.
But the guy also did mention that they tend to be really strong.
Okay. Well,
So
we might have to
we'll
eat a
see.
big meal before.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
So the whiskey is Nikka, and it's spelled Coffey. So I don't know if that's coffee or coffee grain whiskey.
Okay.
And from my understanding, that is a method of distillery that the people who make it kind of got from Scotland.
Oh, cool.
So I'm assuming that this is going to be similar to Scotch.
Okay. Excellent.
So the tasting notes by Whiskey Exchange, on the nose, a sweeter and fruity with oodles of sweet spice, mango, papaya, and orange peel. So
Let's go ahead and
yeah,
smell
let's go
it.
and smell that one. Definitely
it
got
is.
a sweet smell.
That is weird.
Definitely gives us some orange.
Yeah.
On the palate, toffee popcorn with heady citrus and tropical fruit. Quite a mouthful.
Okay.
And the finish, not especially long-lasting, rich oak and marmalade notes dominate.
All right. Well, cheers, guys.
Salute.
Actually, that does it does not remind me of a Scotch. That's really
That's right. I had watched a video on this last night, and the guy said this tastes more like a bourbon to me.
yeah. I would agree.
And I am very happy about that. I'm not a big Scotch guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely doesn't have the smokiness
Oh yeah.
that a Scotch has, but maybe a little more than a bourbon, I think.
Yeah.
It's,
I definitely taste the citrus in that.
No, yeah. Definitely, it's definitely sweeter than some bourbons that I've had.
Yeah, but not overly sweet like the Rebel Yell that we
no.
had on the last episode.
yeah, that was a little too sweet.
I
but-
think that's like a Southern thing. I was telling, I believe Ryan. I was
Yeah.
telling that over the phone that I think it's like a Southern thing. Like they have like the sweet teas, Southern Comfort. You know,
Yeah.
they tend to like their stuff sweet down there.
Yeah.
So
It could be.
So, some unique facts. It's 40% or 45% alcohol by volume,
Okay.
making that 90 proof. About $60 to $65 for 750 milliliter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So a little higher in price. I don't know if that's imported from Japan kind of thing.
Well, I'll try and find out.
And then it says this is predominantly made from corn and distilled in a coffee still or Kofi still.
Okay.
However they pronounce it. Yeah, the complex, sweet, and mellow flavors of this expression will help you rediscover the beauty of a grain whiskey.
Well, I don't
That's
know
from the
that
website.
I don't know that I need to rediscover it. I'm definitely discovering this as a good a good whiskey so far. I enjoy it. It's delicious.
definitely got a smooth finish. Got a little bit of a bite to it, which I like. I don't like something too smooth. You know, usually when something is too smooth, it's lacking flavor.
Right? Yeah.
This thing's a good happy medium.
Yeah.
It's right in
I think
between.
so.
Yeah, I agree. There's not much burn going down, but I've had smoother, but I've also had some with a lot less flavor.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this hits it out of the park as being kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I've never really. I don't think I've ever had a Japanese whiskey, to be honest.
I've had Suntory, which to me tastes more similar to a Scotch, and it was decent. But this is definitely changing my opinion to be even more favorable. Not that Suntory was bad; it wasn't my favorite.
Okay.
I believe you have. It was a while ago. I bought some before Mammoth.
Okay.
But that was definitely more Scotch like.
Okay.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember anything similar to this, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think the sweetness of this will pair well with a little bit stronger bodied cigar here.
Yeah, I'm actually really digging the flavor combination on this cigar with this whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the cigar's got a little bit of some sweeter notes, especially when you smell it on the cold draw. Before I lit mine up, I tasted a lot of like dried fruit
Yep.
kind of notes in there, and it's probably why it's pairing so well. I think this is a good pair.
Yeah.
It's always funny when we just kind of like pick a cigar and pick a whiskey and
Then they
you
line
kinda don't
up,
know.
or
They either line up
well,
or
we've
they
had
don't.
some that haven't lined up all that well, but hey, it is what it is. You live and you learn. So,
Yeah.
all right.
All right, so moving on to the triggered firearms topic. The age-old question: why do you need guns?
That's like I said, it's a great question. I think personally, there's a lot of different ways to answer that question, and I'm a man of my convictions. So I stand oftentimes very strongly by the way that I feel about questions like these. At the end of the day, though, again, there's a lot of ways to answer this question, and so I think it'll be neat to kind of hear a few different arguments. And in either way. So
for the purpose of this podcast, we're gonna do something a little bit different. Ryan and Anthony. Anthony's also a gun owner, so he's has an opinion on this.
He's also one of our hunting companions. Yes. For those of you that don't know.
I have an opinion on this, but for the purpose of this podcast, I think I'm just going to play a little devil's advocate in a lot of these and see if we can't spark a pretty good debate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are ready.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to be too harsh, but I want to do.
Obviously.
I want to keep the other side in there, because it is a big argument. It's a very common question.
It's definitely
why do you need guns is a very common question.
Yeah, it's a question that you get asked quite often. Even when not even on the topic of guns, but on topics that may include guns, like hunting or sport shooting or even just home defense. Oftentimes you'll get asked, that question or a variant of that question. And so I think it's something that as a gun owner, whether that's a 22 or a handgun, or you've got a whole vault full of guns, you need to know, why do you own one?
Yeah.
There's always that lingering question.
And I think that's a good question to ask yourself if you want to buy a gun too.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Why do I do this? What is the purpose? Why do I?
And yeah, we did touch a little bit on that when we talked about buying your first gun as well. What are you going to use it for and things like that. But I think this will be a great topic for those that own guns and essentially may believe very strongly that owning guns is a good thing, and it's great for those that kind of oppose that thought process as well.
All right, so let's jump into it. Okay. I'm going to ask you guys both, why do you need guns? Why do you need guns? And that's the very vague question, so we'll ask a little more specific ones a little bit later on.
Okay. I think for me, and for me, it's quite a long answer. I don't know if you want to start with that, and then I'll kind of go after you.
Well, it's kind of tricky because any gun guy, you could tell them or you can tell them a reason I would give usually, and you wouldn't sound crazy. But if you were to tell someone self-defense, a lot of people would think really, you really think someone's gonna be coming through your window at night? There's a possibility, So without trying to sound too crazy, for me they're really fun. I get to do things with my cousins that we didn't do before.
Yeah.
I get to go out with one of my uncles that I didn't really hang out with before. I get to talk to my dad more about it, Get to talk shop with other guys at work who are on the guns. So it's like a hobby for me. But then on the other side, there is the self-defense purposes and hunting purposes, And I don't want to sound crazy, but, SJW, shit hits fan purposes,
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, for me, I've kind of broken it down in my opinion. I thought, kind of the overall topic, why do I need guns? And for me, I think it's a God-given right to protect myself and my family. And that's against criminals, tyranny, animals even, and any enemies, foreign or domestic, and just deadly threats in general that can be stopped with a firearm. The next reason is because it's our right to responsibly hunt and provide for our families. And guns, in fact, are the most efficient and humane way to take wild game. I'll touch more on that later. And then last but not least, I think it's a right as our U.S. citizens. As U.S. citizens, it's one of our rights. In fact, it's the Second Amendment, to the Constitution. And so there's that. There is the element of a lot of people collect them and their heirlooms, and there's a lot of history in guns, and you find a lot of historical guns out there. And definitely for hobby's sake and things like that, sure. But a lot of people will, often say, well, what about, airsoft guns or BB guns? You can have those, or you can have bows and arrows. Why do you need to have a larger bore firearm? And so we'll get to that later. But to expand a little bit on the 3 points that I mentioned,
Okay.
I'd like to just kind of share the Second Amendment, which is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay?
Okay.
And I don't want to make this a Second Amendment topic or a Second Amendment debate.
Because, and we will have podcast topics dedicated to that.
Absolutely. And
interpretations.
Yeah, interpretations, what that means now, in today's present day, because obviously that was written a long time ago. That's not what this is. However, it does need to be mentioned. It does, because
it is part of the argument.
It is part of the argument. In fact, it's what our nation was founded on. The explorers that initially discovered America, came to America, were actually armed to the teeth for that day and age. I mean, they came in with muskets, cannons, sword. They had plate armor. They had helmets. I mean, these guys were not coming in to this country going, okay, we're going to make a settlement here and have no way to defend ourselves. In fact, they were more armed than the natives and things like that. And that was mainly for the defense against pirates, natives, and other countries. Oftentimes back in the day, other countries' ships would, enter combat with one another simply upon seeing the flag of another country. But it was also necessary for hunting and settlement protection, which to me, again, goes right back to the hunting argument and home defense. The other thing is our independence was fought for with guns. Many of the U.S. troops and militia during the American Revolution were simple farmers and laborers. Mm-hmm. In fact, they grew up hunting with the same guns that they ended up taking into battle during the American Revolution. I mean, these guys were using the guns that they grew up learning how to shoot with. I mean, and that, if that doesn't tell you something about it, and our rich history with the fact that our entire country is founded on that, then I don't know any other better way to kind of get that across. I mean, essentially, the entire American Revolution was won with citizens with guns, and most of the actual uniformed troops were also hunters, fishermen, laborers of the colonies that signed up and essentially did the same thing. Now, moving on to the self-protection point that I had mentioned. You can talk about criminals, and most common would be home invasion, robberies, rapes, violent crimes. So anytime that there's a threat of death or serious bodily injury, and there's a whole bunch of other arguments that go along with that. On top of that, it would be civil unrest, so like looting, rioting, raiding. We've seen this in incidents like Hurricane Katrina. We've seen this in incidents like the Watts riots, and things like that.
And to cut you off there, I think a lot of people sometimes think that somebody who's going to use firearms in that situation are going to be out, flashing their gun around, and you're talking strictly using it for self-protection.
Absolutely not.
And guarding your home.
Yeah, trying to get, say something like that were to happen while you're out, you're at work, or you're just out of the house, you're going to need some form of protection to get to your vehicle, get your vehicle back home. And like I said, we saw in Hurricane Katrina, people breaking into homes, looting and rioting in the streets and throughout all these flood zones where there were people still trapped and living and trying to survive on what food and what means they had. And they were taking from the people that didn't have guns. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm not talking about running up and down the streets shooting at people. I'm talking about personal protection.
And before any listeners who may not agree with the whole gun ownership, all those people who were in Katrina or in the LA riots who had a gun probably never thought they would need a gun for those such purposes. So never say it can't happen because it has happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously tyrannical government. We've seen civil war in this country where two sides of Americans have felt that the government was wrong and decided to wage war against one another with guns that they owned and that they used every day. Again, we're seeing that again in that situation. But we've also seen it in other states, other countries, other nations where the government begins to take away rights, or they begin to take away guns, and crime runs rampant, or the government then just begins disarming the people and sending them off to God knows where to do God knows what. And so
I think the response to that would be, nobody's trying to take away all your gun.
Well, and that's fine. They might not. But if that day does come, then I know as an American citizen, I'm protected.
So with that, I have another question.
Okay.
Along the same lines, but I'm going to ask you a little more specific. Why do you need an AR-15 or AK style gun?
Well, I'm going to just answer the AK one really quickly.
Okay.
The only reason you would need an AK platform is because you're not smart enough to buy an AR-15 platform. No, I joke. I totally joke. The only reason you would buy an AK is if you wanted to not hit what you're shooting at.
Well, some would argue that the only reason you buy an AK is because you want reliability.
Well, and see, there you go. If you want reliability but not be able to hit anything, sure, go for it. No, I'm totally joking around. I think that both platforms are absolutely fine. They both have their pros and cons.
But what is the need for a civilian to be using one of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason for me personally is they are excellent for personal defense. And the reason why I say that is home defense, number one. Number two, though, is all enemies, foreign and domestic. I mean, think about it. Here's the thing. It is the musket of today's time. Every single person who was, when the Constitution was framed and the amendments were all framed, the musket was owned by every single person. In fact, there were townships and cities and places in the United States where every able-bodied man was required to have a musket in their home, some sort of a rifle. That was the AR-15 of its day. That was the standard issue, just a black powder rifle. Nowadays, we have AR-15s, we have M4s, we have M16s, things like that. That is the musket of today's time. So I think that, if you are an able-bodied American, I think that it's great for not only home defense, but also for national defense. I think that if you claim to be a diehard citizen that would do anything to protect your nation, you should at least consider owning some form of a rifle. More importantly, you should consider owning some form of an AR-15 and being familiar with that weapon system. The reason why I think they're great for home defense and for things like that is simply because they hold a large amount of rounds. In most states. In our state, unfortunately, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. But it is great for quick target acquisition and for handling, again, multiple criminals, multiple enemies, multiple threats. A lot of other states use them for hunting as well. They're not legal for hunting here.
They're not?
Not generally, no.
Really?
It depends on what you're hunting.
Yeah,
the caliber's pretty small for most,
Yeah, and so...
But I suppose you could build an AR platform to, how do you say, accommodate that caliber, right?
Well, yeah. And that's a whole nother topic. But in a lot of other states, yes, they're used for hunting, and not so much just hunting as wild game population control. So we see them a lot in areas where they have rampant coyotes, wild boars that just tear up the environment and things like that. So they're very useful in that case. They're also great. And again, when I say all enemies, foreign and domestic, I'm talking about domestic terrorists. We've seen multiple incidents involving, homegrown terrorists or even terrorists from, other countries or mass shooters that show up with an AR or an AK variant of some form or, with multiple weapons. You'd be able to engage somebody like that from a long distance. I think you'd have a tactical advantage.
Uh-huh.
So to me personally, that's where I see the necessity of owning an AR-15.
So the next logical question, I think, from the other side would be, well, if we got rid of all those guns, then nobody would have them.
That's not true.
It's not true?
No, absolutely not. And the reason for that is because how many of those criminals are going out and getting those guns legally? How many of them have built them with, parts that are purchased off the black market, or how many of them are even eligible to own or possess those guns? How are you going to get rid of that out of the hands of criminals? And I know we've talked about this on our show before, that's an old argument that's going to get beaten to death. Well, the problem is
criminals don't follow
that
the laws.
At the end of the day, they really don't follow the laws.
Yeah.
So how can you expect to have that? You can go back to the 1930s and look at law enforcement in the 1930s. At that time, they were carrying lever-action rifles, maybe small shotguns or shorter, double-barreled shotguns. A lot of them were carrying, 38-style revolvers and things like that. This is during the time of, organized crime, the mafia, a lot of the prohibition. And those criminals were importing Thompson submachine guns, BARs, all forms of semi-automatic, weapons and fully automatic submachine guns and things like that. And so at some point you have to realize, okay, we need something a little bit bigger to take these guys down. In fact, one of the main reasons why AR-15 platforms are being used in law enforcement today is because of things like the North Hollywood shootout, where those guys were using assault rifles, fully automatic assault rifles, and they were fighting street cops,
which were not legal in California.
Which were not legal in California at the time,
or
the United States, really. Without proper permits and things like that. They were wearing full body armor, and these police officers were going in, again, with 1911s, 38s, Berettas, 9mm, and shotguns against these fully automatic, huge bore caliber rifles.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this is for a different podcast also, but didn't they have to go into gun stores and actually get
Yes,
guns?
they seized guns from gun stores to fight back, rifles and things where they could potentially hit them from a longer distance. And so I think for me personally, I look at that and go, well, if the criminals are going to equip themselves with that, if the government is going to equip its soldiers with that, and they, for whatever reason, become a tyrant government, or a government that's run by tyranny, do I want to be outmatched? No, I don't.
Let's also not forget that an AR-15 is not what the military gets.
It's not. It's not even close to what the military gets.
And that leads into my next question. And a lot of times you see this in the media. So I'm going to ask it the way I've heard it phrased. This should be a very easy question because I have my answer, and I'll actually give you mine after. But why do civilians need military-style assault weapons?
Can you define military style?
Exactly.
For me, please.
That's the whole thing. Is typically when somebody uses that's not really familiar with guns, they lump the AR-15 or the AK in that category, and it's definitely not part of that category.
Yeah, it's not.
And why is it not part of that?
Well, the whole thing is a trick question, and the reason why is because we don't actually have, as civilians, we don't have access to military style weapons or just military standard issue weapons. We don't have burst fire. We don't have full auto. We don't have explosive ordinances like C4 and grenades and RPGs and law rockets. And you could make a whole laundry list of guns that we don't have access to.
Some of those YouTubers online, man, they get those certain background checks done. What is that called? The C-class license?
I have no idea what it's called, but I guarantee you we're not getting one here.
Oh, no, I know that.
Well,
and that's far and few between, and a lot of them have a purpose to get that way.
But if you look at those guys, they're all Gucci'd out with all their suppressors and fully automatic weapons. You don't see them doing nothing stupid.
But I believe too. I think they have to get their guns.
FFL.
And their guns have to be manufactured before a certain year because I think certain fully auto guns are illegal that were before the federal law went in place.
Right.
So anything after that's illegal.
Yeah, there are some that are grandfathered in, and a lot of them are pulling permits. For example,
but the problem is you're not just your average citizen is getting it. You have to go through
all kinds of
it's not easy. It's almost
and you have to prove that you have a purpose. Like I'm running a YouTube show where I'm gonna shoot one round out of a law rocket just to see what happens. And
things about rockets and stuff. I don't know about automatic stuff.
Well, even that too.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that happens as well. That where you have to, exactly. But what I'm saying is, I guess my point is military style could mean anything from the M4, a fully automatic M4, to at that point, why can't I buy a big old bundle of C4?
Yeah, so
you know what I'm saying?
Basically, I think the answer to the question is you can't. You can't just go into the store and buy one.
Yeah.
You have to get government permission if you want one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe the steps for that, you have to go to your local sheriffs and you have to get okayed, and I think they may even do like a such a background check where they have to like go interview neighbors and stuff.
Yeah, I think it turns into almost like
I think it's actually more at a federal level at that point. But again, that has very little to do with the topic of.
Yeah, and if you guys want, we can do a how to obtain automatic weapons.
I think I'm
podcast.
good. I think I'm good.
Well, I mean, it kind of why you need to like those guys don't need like anybody in a fight's not going to be shooting automatic. They're going to be shooting.
How do you know that?
I mean, most do.
Well, we just brought up the North Hollywood where they were shooting automatic.
Yeah, and there was multiple times, and again, we've seen it all throughout history where you're seeing organized crime, where they can bring those things in over the border. They have huge networks that can do that can bring them in through U.S. soil. So, in my personal opinion, this is just my personal belief. I think that to an extent. So don't everyone go freaking out on me. But to an extent, I think that civilians should be able to own some of the same equipment and things that the United States military has.
I have no problem with that as long as you pass the proper channels.
Well,
I think it's my right as a United States citizen, but hey, whatever.
That's also for another topic.
Exactly.
So before we move on to the next question.
Well, actually, I would like...
To that.
I'd like to see if Anthony had anything to add to that as well, because I feel like I've been.
Why the AR-15 and the
AR,
AK?
AK, or military style? If you had anything to add to those.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about self-protection, then those are obviously very good choices because military uses them, or use that style.
A variation of one.
Yeah.
They're also very fun to shoot. You can give an AR to a younger person who was just getting through the day shooting 22. They can pick up an AR and have fun with that, no problem. And it's just the tad bit more kick, but like the boom and everything else is a lot more fun. Ammo's inexpensive to go shooting. You can go shoot like 1,000 rounds with a bunch of buddies and plink some stuff, which is real fun.
Right.
AKs, I mean, you could even use that. No, I suppose you couldn't use that for hunting, could you?
Yeah, it's a pretty big round.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily as accurate as you'd want it to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like boar hunting or something like that, you're not going to be too far off anyways. You're not going to be taking 300-yard shots for a boar anyways.
Yeah. Well, and like we said, hunting doesn't always have to mean taking game for the purpose of eating it. It can be for population control.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
So in that purpose, I know for a fact they're used in a lot of the countries where they have herds of wild boar trampling through, towns and backyards and things like that. So I know that they're useful for stuff like that.
And at one point, the ammo used to be somewhat reasonable. Well, when you could buy it online, now it's a little tough to do something like that.
Well, in California it is.
Right, but I mean, these questions are yes, there's some that are, we tailor our answers for Californians, but these are questions that are asked across the nation, you know, and so
that's true.
And so I think that you're right. I think the ammunition is cheap for both of them. I mean, you can buy AR and AK ammo in multiple different, like the AR-10, multiple different variants. I say
variants
basically of the same weapon system. You can buy them for a lot cheaper than you could even buy like deer rifle rounds, like the 270s, 30-06s, and things like that. So
yeah, we'll get into this more in depth in another podcast. But I also think with the AR-15 style. There's just so many options.
Right.
When you're talking about the different variants of the bullet that it shoots and just all the accessories that are made for it. It's really like...
It's like Barbies for guys.
Yeah. I mean, you can find hundreds of companies, probably thousands of companies that make parts for that specific type.
And I think there's a lot of people that don't... They look at the AR and they see that just the AR that's constantly, or the M4 that's constantly being shown on the media, and it's just this all black, just basic style assault rifle, maybe with a small scope on it, or an ACOG or something of that nature, and that's what they see, and they go, oh my gosh, that's evil. A lot of people don't realize that by the time you put a bipod on it and you put a huge scope and everything else, Some of them can be way too bulky to carry around and do anything with, and a lot of guys modify them for long range shooting or for hunting purposes. What we don't have access to in here in California, which I think is a great point, the AR variant doesn't necessarily have to be a rifle or a carbine. You can make AR pistols. That are legal in other states that are insane for home protection because they're short. You can still add rails to them. You can add lights. You can add lasers. You can add everything and be extremely effective for home protection or even self-defense. And I think there was and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm just kind of going off the top of my head here, but there was a mass shooting in a church in Texas where the suspect was either shot and wounded by a civilian AR or was at least slowed down or inhibited at some point by a civilian who had an AR-15 variant in his truck. And had he not opened fire on that suspect, things might have gotten a lot worse or a lot more out of hand. Yeah, that guy actually, he was a damn good shot. He did. I believe the guy was wearing body armor.
Yeah, and he actually hit him in the side, in the ribs,
and
where the body armor wasn't.
Yeah. So, and same thing with the San Bernardino shooting where we had, and the Santa Monica shooting, for example, where you had suspects with AR-15 variants, or assault-style weapons, basically.
Quote, unquote.
Quote, unquote, running up and down city streets. Now, I know for a fact the Santa Monica shooting took place all over Santa Monica, over the city. Had somebody been in a neighborhood and seen that young man taking fire on somebody and had an AR-15 and was able to take him out from over 100 yards, 200 yards,
easy.
It would have stopped a lot more carnage from happening. Same with the San Bernardino shooting.
Possibly.
It's a potential thought.
So, I'd like to revisit the cigar.
Yeah.
I'm actually really enjoying this. I've had to do a couple of touch-ups.
I've had to do a lot of touch-ups.
Yeah, I don't know why. It seems like it's constructed really well. It's just burning a little uneven on mine. But I will say I think I'm smoking this a lot faster than I smoke most cigars because it's really, 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 really tasty.
It's smooth, it's tasty, and I know I was worried when I looked at them, and I told you guys earlier, I go, man, this is probably going to be a strong cigar. I did not trust the opinion of the cigar shop owner or worker that suggested them. So obviously he knows his cigars, which leads me back to the point of always ask and get an opinion. It might be wrong, but a lot of the times it's right.
Could you have gone a little heavier than this, Teddy?
I think I could handle something a little more with a little more body to it.
Oh, I definitely could.
Yeah.
Like I said, I assume that this would have a lot more body to it.
Yeah, this, like I said, I'm thrown off by the darkness of the wrapper.
Yeah.
Being in Connecticut does not look like a Connecticut at all. I'm gonna have to probably do a little research and see if maybe it's the Dominican leaf that maybe is darker. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, it's very enjoyable to smoke. The ash is staying on very well for me. I don't know about you guys. It looks like you guys are smoking a little bit faster than me. So
I have a tendency of tapping.
Yeah.
Well, so I ash very quickly.
It's almost as if you've smoked different kinds of tobacco before.
Cigarettes, yes. It was a bad time in my life. a lot of rough times.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is pretty enjoyable. And what are you guys thinking about the whiskey?
It pairs insanely well.
I already had to do a refill.
I will say, this might be a little different than what usually happens. I think I might have enjoyed this a little bit more with the fresh pour. I might enjoy this a little bit more neat.
Yeah. As the water or as the ice melts and kind of waters down the whiskey, though, I'm noticing a lot more of a orange or the citrus flavor than I did before.
That's why I only asked for 3 cubes.
Yeah. Well, generally we do just 3 cubes, but considering our topic, we just assume that
you
that we
might
may
want to
go
invest
long.
in some ice balls.
Yeah, we might have to.
Actually, with the ice balls, not trying to go off topic too much, but I find they don't melt fast enough.
Oh, yeah.
And I typically, I guess it would just depend on the whiskey. With this whiskey, I would probably like it.
Honestly, with
or
this,
the rocks.
Yeah, I was gonna say whiskey
rocks.
stones would be good. Yeah.
Would be pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you try something new, it's hard to.
You just don't know.
Yeah, you
what
just
to
do
expect.
it the way you usually do things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think definitely next time we'll have to try this neat.
You'll have to try this in Japan and tell us how it.
Oh yeah, there we go. It probably tastes better. It's probably more fresh or something.
I'm telling you, try to get hibiki when you're over there.
It might
I'll
be
do
like
my best.
like drinking a Guinness in
Ireland, where it's the best Guinness I've ever had. Yeah.
Okay, so another question that's very common that I get.
Okay.
Why do you need so many guns?
I'm gonna let Anthony take the lead on this one, and then I'll jump in.
Why do you need so many guns?
I like to have options. When I go out shooting with a bunch of guys, it gets kind of boring when you when you have to shoot one thing or another. Like you only have two options to shoot. Yeah, I just like options. Options. Well, not only that, like I have a gun at home that's specifically for hunting. My shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I bought it because it can take it turkey hunting if I need to. I can go duck hunting if I need to do. It's light enough to where I could be checking it along for a chukar hunt. You know, it's a workhorse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's one topic or one thing I use that one for. It's also good for skeet. I mean, if you're going to be hunting with it, you might as well be practicing with it too, right?
Right.
I got my AR at home. That's for self-defense, out having fun, plinking with the guys. 22s, I have a bunch of 22s. You know, when you want to go on the cheap, you got to have something a little cheap on there.
Yeah, and 22s are super fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 22s. That's the way to go.
If you don't have a 22, you're missing out.
You really are.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you can Gucci those out pretty good too.
Yeah. And there's so many different models out there you can buy.
Yeah.
And the one fun fact for all you California people is 22s, you don't have to be on the handgun roster if you want to get a 22 pistol because
Really?
it's rimfire.
Yep.
Right on.
Same with if you buy a AR style 22, you can have evil features on it
Oh yeah,
because it's
it's
rimfire.
It's rimfire. It's not
Yeah,
centerfire.
it's not a centerfire. Yeah.
To continue, if I had the money, I would buy pretty guns. Because I like to look at pretty guns.
Yeah.
If I was making good money and I had money to burn, I would definitely buy one of those. I'm not sure what they call them, but like they're the hand carved Beretta shotguns.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like
you
the
know-
hand engraved and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah, I
beautiful.
mean,
With a serial number of 3 or
Oh.
1 or
yeah, that's a
Amazing.
and that's I think some things a lot of people don't understand. Is some people just appreciate the craftsmanship.
You know, honestly, there's a whole like sector of gun owners that don't even really shoot. They just collect guns and they buy different styles of guns. And I would have to argue that although my father-in-law does shoot a lot, he would be one of those guys that I think likes to collect some very unique guns and some guns that have a lot of history to them, or even just guns that are just like you said, cool or really fun to take out to the range.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
from what I know, your father-in-law, I know that he has a lot of guns that he doesn't even shoot.
Yeah,
he
that
just
are
has
in
them.
the box and they're one of a kind, and yeah, he loves them.
Just talking to him, the few times I've talked to him, he just loves. I think he loves to have unique guns.
He does.
Oh, yeah.
Guns that people don't have, and he likes to talk about it. And it's interesting because when somebody that collects guns like that, they'll start to know the history and they'll know why.
Yeah.
And so you always get good stories.
Yeah, it's great. Well, and then the other thing is he loves to watch other people shoot those guns.
Yeah.
Because he gets a kick out of like, well, this is something you've never fired before. Oh, you have to try it.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot of that as well.
That's the one reason I want to buy a 460 Magnum to watch Ryan shoot it.
I think I'll do just fine. Yeah, so for me, when I get asked why do you need so many guns, to me, I look at it this way. I look at it in I guess, a little bit more of a practical sense in that guns are very similar to tools. You have a bunch of different tools in a toolbox, and they all do different things. You wouldn't use a screwdriver to tighten a bolt, and you wouldn't use a wrench to tighten a screw. So you have guns that do a lot of different things. I know we've talked a little bit about this in previous episodes, but long rifles obviously are best for long-range hunting and long-range shooting. Carbines are most effective at medium range and are good for both hunting and oftentimes for personal protection. handguns are best at short range and are generally used for self-defense. And, you've got shotguns that are great for bird and small mammal hunting as well as home defense. And you've got a bunch of other variants, and I could go through that whole list as well. But oftentimes, when people ask you that question, it's like, well, I have a shotgun that I use for bird hunting and rabbit hunting, and that would not be effective against a deer at 300 yards.
Yeah.
It wouldn't get the job done. I also wouldn't use a 30-06 with a long range scope on it to clear my house. It would punch through too many walls, and it would be very, very ineffective. And so I think that guns in the practical sense of home defense, in the practical sense of hunting, in the practical sense of national defense or defense against deadly threats, you need to be able to use the right weapon for the job. You need to be able to use the right gun for the job. And then similar to what Anthony said is that, every gun is so different in shooting that, at the end of the day, if you are a gun enthusiast or a gun collector, or you're into shooting sports or marksmanship, you want to be able to have different options. And it can get very expensive to spend all day at the range shooting large bore rifles. Yep. So sometimes taking out a 22 and practicing your marksmanship, or a 17 HMR or something that's a little cheaper that you can really just work on honing in your marksmanship is kind of the way to go. And so I think that in that case, you have to kind of look at it in that general idea of that each gun has a specific purpose. And pretty guns or collector's items are simply that. They're there to be collected. They're there to be cherished. They're there to be passed down. Whereas, for me, if I get some scratches on my 1911 or if I get scratches on my shotgun, I don't care because I know I've taken it out. I've used it for its purpose. And that's exactly what it is.
Well, I think maybe that question comes up so much is because it could be misconstrued as stockpiling. You know what I mean? Why do you need so many guns? Meaning that, why are you creating such an arsenal? And I think I kind of like your guys' answers because that's pretty much the same answer that I would have is it's different. It's a different gun for different purposes.
Yeah. Well, and there is an aspect of the stockpiling as well. When you know that the restrictions are going to be made, or like for example with ammunition, when
Not
we didn't.
Just that. When you think about it, all right, you and I, whoever, we meet up, shit is fan. You're going to need multiple weapons to hand out. I have one for Jeremy. I have one for me. I have one for my dad, for Rand and Rudy. It sounds crazy to say, but I'm telling you, those people who were in LA never thought that could happen.
Yeah.
Never in a million years thought that would happen. Like the Korean store owners would have to be on top of the roof with guns.
Yeah.
Why would they ever think that? I actually have a friend whose mom had her front window broken open during the riots, and someone was coming into their house.
Right.
She shouted that they had a revolver,
right,
which they actually did. The guy never came upstairs.
Right.
But, they never thought it would happen to them.
Right. Yeah, I don't think anyone ever does think that, it won't happen to me, I've got this or I've got that, or it just won't happen, I live in a nice neighborhood or something like that. But anything can happen at any time, and history has proven that time and time again. And I think for that is a good point. At the end of the day, though, too, I kind of also have a mentality of, you do what you can to protect your own. I'm not trying to arm the whole neighborhood or anything like that. But at the end of the day, if I know that my wife and my family and friends or very close friends or like I said, family or anything of that nature is, as long as I know that they can protect themselves, it's also a thing. And the other thing that we've talked about too is about having guns, and I guess this kind of goes under the collecting portion of it or whatever, but having things to pass on to the family. And I can say, and actually Theodore can as well, that our grandfather has collected quite a few guns in his time, and has also given a lot away to family as gifts, and those are guns that we all cherish and that we all love, and that's one of those things when you create a family that you kind of leave behind your legacy with each one of those pieces of weaponry. And it's the same thing though with, like I said, with his tools. He's given me a lot of hand tools, and even some power tools over the years that I just know those are my grandfather's. Like, I love them and I cherish them almost more so than the brand new tools that I just bought or brand new guns that I've just purchased or whatever.
Yeah.
So
kind of along the same vein, when you, because I've had this is pretty much based off of me having conversations with people that have asked me these questions. Kind of the next question is, okay, so you have different reason for different guns. Well, why do you need different calibers? I get that a lot. The same thing, well, if you have a pistol, why do you need multiple pistols of different calibers? And would your answer be the same? They serve different purposes? Because that's kind of what my answer usually is. But why do you need different calibers?
Yeah, so I think...
or rifles.
On that same vein, well, and even in calibers or gauges for shotguns as well, I think they all, again, serve a completely different purpose. When you have... you look especially at rifles. I think with rifles, it really, really comes down to the distance, the accuracy, the drop off of the bullet, what it is capable of taking down. Whether that be a larger animal or a smaller animal, things like that. You got to look at that as well with handguns. The 9mm. There's day-long arguments of the 9mm versus the 45 versus the 40. When it comes to semi-automatic handguns, again, a different debate for a different day, but essentially the 9mm is always known as the more accurate one, smaller round, cheaper. You can send a lot more downrange, and guys swear by them. The 45 is known for having stopping power, and the 40 is known as just kind of being that weird in-between caliber that doesn't know what it is. But at the end of the day, they all kind of, essentially serve a different purpose. Their effective ranges are a lot different as well. For me personally, when I look at my selection of a 45 and a 9mm, which I own both, I would actually trust my 45 inside the home more so than I would my 9mm, simply because I want the most amount of stopping power, and I'm not necessarily looking to send a lot of rounds down range just to be necessarily like more accurate and to stop the threat quicker. Whereas, concealed carrying in places like Las Vegas or, in areas where I'm in a more open situation, I would rather have my 9mm with me simply because it is more accurate. And I know 100% that I'm going to be able to make a shot that I might not be able to make with my 45 at the same distance.
And you can carry more ammo.
Yeah, that as well. Yeah.
I would say different calibers. Well, first off, to serve different purposes, actual jobs. And then second off, which one's more fun? You want to shoot a big old bore rifle to see someone's reaction. That's a fun time.
Yeah. I think when it comes to rifles, there's the argument for different purposes is a lot better, only because rifle rounds, I mean, they each round almost was like created for a different purpose.
Yes, and developed specifically for that purpose.
I don't know necessarily for pistols. I think that's maybe where people ask that question so much. I think people that are not so much into guns, a lot of it comes from just not understanding. From what I've seen, it's usually they just assume every gun does the same thing.
Right.
So then why would you need more than one?
Right.
Doing this podcast it's really hard to play devil's advocate with an understanding of all this stuff. Yeah. Because when I hear your answer, it makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. Yeah. And I know what I think and the answers that I've given in the past and the questions that I've gotten as follow-ups. And it's usually when you're not in part of the community or not part of the culture, you just don't know the answers.
Well, you could kind of an analogy to that would be you could ask a musician, why do you need so many different guitars? They all have 6 strings and you can play all of them.
They all have different tones, right?
Right, exactly, and they all make a different sound, and it's all used for different songs, or you know what I mean. So at the end of the day, you really could ask anyone anything.
My answer to the why you need so many guitars or why do you need such an expensive guitar is because it's awesome. Yeah.
honestly, you could use that. I know I joked with you guys earlier that you literally could go for every single one of these. Well, Second Amendment. Well, Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Well, Second Amendment. Well, Second Amendment. But I think that answer is far too easy. I mean, you need to be logical about these things, and I think that that's part of the problem on both sides. Is that a lot of the people really do just answer Second Amendment every time, or it's my right, or because I want them, and that's fine. It's true. It is. It's a valid argument. The problem is that doesn't help the person on the other side who doesn't understand go, oh, okay, maybe, now I'm starting to kind of get it a little bit. No, instead they're sitting there going, well, I still don't necessarily get it. Like and so being able to explain it and say, well, these are the purposes. I don't know that too many of the people that ask those types of questions, like you said, have an idea that a 30-06 is far different than a 308, is far different than a 6.5 Creedmoor in their maximum effective range, and their velocity, and their accuracy, and and it's
and the reason why they were developed.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
So I think that's a really, really it's a hard argument to have with someone that is uneducated with guns.
That seems like something you can possibly explain to them, like if you were to break down like the whole 22, like, okay, well, this is
But would they sit there and listen to you?
That's the thing. See,
Yeah, and both sides too.
Yeah.
And would I want to hear them out? At the end of the day, if they had a logical argument and were able to explain to me their reasoning, I would love to hear it. I have yet to, and I'm just being totally honest, I have yet to encounter somebody who has sat me down and had a valid argument other than, well, you don't need it. You just don't need it. You just don't. I just don't think you need that many. And that's what I encounter all the time.
A lot of those people some of these people who make those arguments have like $1,000 purses. You don't need a $1,000 purse.
Yeah.
You can go to Walmart and buy a $10 purse.
Right.
It does the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that things that they don't need. But on the other hand, the counter argument would be, well, I'm not going to kill anybody with my $1,000 purse.
You could put a brick in it. And actually, then the $1,000 purse might come in handy because it'd probably hold together better.
My
Touche.
analogy to a lot of this, and it's the same. I mean, when you start talking about purpose, it's different. But my analogy is cars. You can buy an expensive car, you can buy a bunch of different cars, but ultimately it's to drive. To get you from point A to point B. That's the purpose of it. And certain cars will do different jobs, like one car will take more people, one car will take, 2 people or whatever.
One
motorcycle.
Will go off-road.
One will go off-road. You have different purposes. But the argument can be, well, why do you need a car that drives over 65 miles an hour if it's illegal?
That's true.
Or why do you need a car that drives over 70, depending on where you live? Because it's illegal. You don't really
We
need
should
that.
have speed limiters.
Yeah, and a lot of times people don't know how to answer that. I mean, obviously the purpose of a car is different than the purpose of a gun, because the counter argument to that is, well, a gun's only purpose is to kill. And when you make a statement like that and you phrase it that way, then it makes it sound bad. Well, to kill, well, if I'm killing an animal to eat it, I mean, is that necessarily a bad thing?
Well, and that's you.
If I have to shoot, somebody that's attacking a loved one or something, is that, necessarily? It's not a good thing, but it's something that I'm willing to do.
So let me play devil's advocate with you on,
Okay.
on that, and it's. I know this was kind of unplanned, but here's the thing: now you have someone who is a vegan. So killing of animals, taking of any kind of animal flesh, I don't know what they believe. I eat a lot of meat, and I'm going to eat a lot of meat, so I really don't care. If they'd like to explain it to me, I'll sit down and listen, but at the end of the day, I'm going to have a steak. So here's the thing. Now, you say, okay, well, what if I kill an animal and eat it, is that really a bad thing? Then they're going to go, yeah, okay. What about, okay, well, I want to defend my family, or I want to defend myself against a threat. Well, why can't you use a taser? Why can't you use a baseball bat? Why can't you use your fists? Why can't you use some other... Why do you have to have a gun? And that to me, is the response to that. And so how would you... You know what I mean? And so I think with...
Yeah, how would I answer that?
Yeah.
Very easily. I'm not going to in that extreme
Right.
amount of time or situation, you want to have the most effective tool.
Absolutely.
And a baseball bat or a taser are simply not as effective. And now I understand anybody who's gotten tased knows that you probably can't move, but I've seen people get out of tasers. I've seen not both of the taser prongs hit.
Right.
Therefore, the taser is useless.
Right.
You have to get really close to somebody if you want to use a hand taser.
Right.
You have to get within range to hit somebody with a bat.
Right.
There are a lot of different reasons why you would choose a firearm over a bat or a taser or any other method.
Right.
And that's the reason why people
Absolutely
have been using them for
no,
so long.
and I agree. I know the other argument that I like to use.
And also the reason why people are so scared of them.
Yeah, the other argument that I like to use for that as well to supplement yours is that someone wielding a knife or an edged weapon or something of that nature can typically, they've done all kinds of studies, but they found that 21 feet is generally the effective range. If they're within 21 feet of you, they will close on you before you can even draw and fire your weapon.
And you're talking about someone that practices drawing and
yes,
firing weapons.
yes,
Not
and
just your
and so
standard
that's
civilian.
why it's and again this is a kind of another topic, but it relates in the fact that oftentimes you hear, well, why didn't the police officer shoot to wound? Did they have to kill him? Why didn't you just shoot him in the knee or in the arm, or why didn't he just wing him real quick and put him on the ground or whatever? Well, now imagine that guy's on PCP with a knife and can't feel anything, and so. Yeah, I think your argument is valid. Now, I think you're right, though, too. Oftentimes, the extremes on either side are hard to argue with because, at the end of the day, you're never going to convince someone who believes that being a vegan is the right way of life, that taking and killing meat is okay. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, I think that the it's tough to argue extremes.
And you know what? If you're a vegan, that's fine. If you don't eat meat, that's fine. But just don't be preaching to me that you don't eat meat.
You can preach to me, but I'm going to eat a steak while you preach.
You can talk about it over dinner.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I get it. Like, you don't eat meat.
No,
that's
and I respect it. Absolutely.
I don't know why that should be like my life choice too.
Well, that's not only for another podcast. That's for a totally different podcast, a vegan podcast, and that's not what we are. So.
Well, I think it goes into saying that oftentimes people don't even, they can't even understand, like we're saying, I have no problems eating meat, and then also having a vegan choose to live a vegan lifestyle. That's absolutely fine. At the end of the day, I think that's where kind of the freedom of the United States comes into play, that we're all free to be who we want to be, and we all have rights. And so I think that at the end of the day, with the extremists, you have to consider your rights. This is just something that, as an American, as a citizen, I have a God-given right to protect myself and to also choose to eat meat.
Yeah.
Well, the whole gun, why don't you use a taser thing? Like, if I'm in a fight for my life, I want every advantage possible in my favor.
Absolutely.
And if I'm lawfully able to own a firearm, then I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Now I understand that some people are not for firearms, so if you want to go ahead and take that chance that the Mr. Robber is going to be only coming at you with hands and fists, that's on you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those things where the reason why you need guns at the end of the day is because
everyone needs a gun. There are some people that I feel shouldn't own guns. There are a lot of people I know that shouldn't own guns.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, though, sure, if you're not going to be responsible about it, but I think if you're a responsible citizen and you're choosing to own a gun, there's no reason why not to. But I think really what it boils down to is the ability to protect yourself. There's a common saying that goes that, my right to swing my arms in the air ends where your nose begins. So I can throw a punch, but the moment I touch you in the face, it now becomes illegal, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think at that same, on the reverse of that, my right to defend myself, begins with the threat, and so at that point, I think that's where it's the most important.
So I'm satisfied with that answer. But do you guys have any more questions or any more to add to any of these questions that were asked?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I feel like there's so many other variants of why do you need so much ammo? Why do you need so many magazines? But again, those are other topics.
Ammo's easy. The reason a lot of people who are shooters who have a lot of ammo is because it's cheapest to buy it in bulk.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That is
a good answer.
That is a good answer. That is true.
And it sucks to be in California now because they took that away from us because all the best deals were online.
Yeah. I mean, you could. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I'm not sure how it works now. I'm not sure if you're allowed to buy online.
Well, we're gonna
then ship it to an FFL.
We're gonna release a podcast in regards to all of the ammo regulations.
Oh, goody!
Before they come out in July, so we'll probably release that podcast in May or June.
Yeah, we'll say one of our listeners was a little upset that you left him on the hang.
Yeah, they left him hanging. I feel kind of bad about it, but at the end of the day, hey, I'd rather have him hanging and listening to each episode, right?
Yeah. Well, if only he had access to a network of information that he kept in his pocket and looked it up on his own.
Yeah.
He could find the answer.
Maybe I could Google it for him.
Here's a question. Have you ever gotten asked that question personally?
Which
like,
one?
why do you need so many guns? Or why do you need guns?
I've been asked all of these.
By multiple people?
Yeah.
I've been asked by my old lady. That's, one of the first things we had.
Uh-huh.
And I just simply told her because I want one. I'm not even kidding.
Well, but see that there's a difference in that relationship versus someone who kind of maybe has a professional relationship with you or somebody that you know through another avenue. Like
you can have that with a family member or significant other.
Yeah, and or a friend, and they might go, "Oh, okay, all right, whatever you say." Yeah, I get it. Yeah, and that's fine. That's fine.
My answer is because I'm American.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Why do you own a 45?
Because I don't like to shoot twice.
Because they don't make a 46. I mean, you could come up with all those ultra American answers, and I'm all for it, 100%, man. I bleed red, white, and blue. But at the end of the day, you're gonna encounter people in your professional life, or maybe at some of maybe something like church or other hobbies that don't revolve around guns, and I try not to make a point to mention that I'm a hunter or that I'm a gun owner to people that I don't know very well. And simply because there's a whole laundry list of reasons, specifically California related reasons for that, and we can go over that in another podcast. But it's one of those things where it will come up at some point if you go hunting and people see photographs, or you get tagged in something on social media, or you're at the range and you see somebody that and they tell somebody else, and I saw so-and-so at the range, and so I've been asked on quite a few occasions so you hunt, and you're okay with that, or you own guns, and oh man, how many guns do you own, or and it's to me, it's always one of those things. I usually try to give
vague answers.
Yeah, and me as well. And then if it's somebody again that I trust enough to kind of give a decent answer to, a lot of the answers that I've answered tonight are my reason for it. So,
what I've come across is being overheard, like at work or somewhere, talking to somebody that you're friends with that are gun owners, and you kind of just talking about, well, I have this, I have that, I have this. Wow, you guys seem to have a lot of guns. Like, I didn't even know you were listening.
Yeah, and that's very
why
common.
do you need so then that's kind of where that opens up those questions. And typically, when I've been asked this question, it's been in front of a couple of people that are also gun owners too. So you're kind of just there sharing your ideas.
Right.
What would you say if someone asked you, who is not a gun owner, and they're like kind of curious, like, you have a bunch of guns, yada yada. Mm-hmm. Like, how would you kind of approach that, answer that in a non, how do you say, a way to kind of spark their interest in it, maybe? You know what I'm saying? So maybe doesn't see them negative way.
If it's someone that doesn't necessarily see them in a negative light, and they kind of see the purpose for it, but they're like, I don't know, oftentimes if it is somebody that I trust, and that I trust that they're responsible enough, one of the best ways that you can do that is to invite them out to the range.
Yeah.
Or invite them somewhere where you're in a controlled environment, and you can say, this is a gun or this or that. A lot of the times what I'll do is, extend an invite to go to the range, or to even go hunting. And the great one is hunting, because in order to go hunting, you have to go through the hunter safety course.
Yeah.
So no matter what, they're at least having a little bit of knowledge about it. That's always a good way. And then the other way is to ask in return, rather than asking them questions back.
Yeah.
To try and figure out where their interest level is.
Yeah, I would be like, have you ever gone shooting before? And if they say no, but oh man, it's freaking fun. You go out there. That's what I'm saying. You kind of sell it to them in a not so negative light. You know what I mean? Like maybe someone who's never gone shooting before. Maybe the first thing to tell them, like, oh, let's go hunting. Like, maybe that's not like the, first step to do it.
Of course. And that's why I said it depends completely on the situation, on your level of comfort with that person, your level of trust with that person, and how well you know
it's
them.
all about reading body language. And
exactly.
Just the way they ask the question.
Just what Teddy said.
Yeah.
The way they ask the question, the way they react to your answers, if they seem receptive to your answers. Because I've had conversations with people that don't want to know, and typically if you can just kind of tell that they're really anti and they're not going to listen to you, then it most of the time it's just like I just kind of give really vague answers and not really get into it, because to me it's not worth it. It's at that point it's none of their business.
Yeah, that's true.
It really isn't. Yeah.
If they're getting off that body language, if they're looking for an argument,
then, I'm not going to argue with
them.
Then
100%. But if they're kind of like generally curious, but like kind of on the like more on like the other side of the fence of the whole thing, like why not like talk to them in a manner to where it seems like just like a fun time out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and but generally you have to see them being a little receptive, at least a little
right.
bit.
Well, and so which is why when you initially phrased the question, you said if they're kind of neutral towards it or even showing interest. That's a totally different situation when you have someone who overhears it and comes at you in a more combative, or not combative, but argumentative, or has a more volatile attitude towards it.
And I tend to overstate. Well, not overstate, but I tend to really state the safety of it.
Yeah.
I'll talk about go out to the range and have a good time, but also kind of see if they've ever handled a gun, or if they know, your rules, your safety rules, and basic things like that, where they can say, oh yeah, this guy's really, it gives them an impression of that I'm really about safety, which we all are. I mean,
well, and I think when you talk in that light, people oftentimes go, oh wow, like I didn't expect that. There was an article that was published recently about someone leaving a Glock in a restroom or something like that.
Yeah, I heard about
where
that.
the Glock is a type of gun that when you pull the trigger, a bullet comes out. And I'm like, wow, really? No, I had no idea. I didn't know that that's the purpose that a trigger served. And that was so wrong of me to have that kind of attitude towards that article, going like, man, oftentimes we're so quick to judge the other side by going,
the reason they phrase it that way?
I know the reason why.
The safety thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I know why. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, like, come on. But the thing is that
not everybody knows
instead
that.
of tearing them down, essentially what someone should be doing is pulling on the side and saying, well, yes, you're right in one instance, because all guns fire when you pull the trigger, but...
What you meant to say is
it doesn't have an
external safety
even
though it does have 3 safeties.
Yeah, exactly. So
I like the idea. I like Teddy's approach, being real, letting them know about the whole safety aspect about it, because when I was up north with Bridget, the way she saw me run the line with the 2 kids, it got her so comfortable to where she was asking, what am I shooting next? And Bridget is not very gun friendly, you know what I mean? And
that's super important, because a lot of times people are intimidated by guns if they've never been out.
Yeah.
And if you show them, look.
Yeah.
And honestly, my first introduction to guns was when I was pretty young, as far as like firing my first firearm. We used to handle pellet guns at my grandpa's house, and that was he was always I don't want to say over the top, but he was very, very safety conscious. I mean, that was the main thing. And I remember him always saying, if I catch you, or if we, see you pointing at anybody or doing anything reckless, he'd always stick his hand out like you're gonna get slapped across the face, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And till this day, it always makes me laugh. Like, man, it was so scary back in the days. Okay.
Yeah.
And you always saw him, even if they walked away, there was always an adult out there, and you were being watched the whole time.
Well, it's funny is you always see jokes on gun blogs or on social media accounts of guys will say like, oh yeah, I'm not satisfied until I've cleared my weapon 3 or 4 times, even though I know it's clear, and I always laugh at that. But I had a friend of mine make fun of me for clearing a handgun 2 or 3 times before handing it to him. And, he's like, dude, if you know it's clear the first time, why not hand it over?
So it's better safe than
sorry. And I go,
yeah,
I'd rather hand it over to you and know 100%, 3, 4, 400%.
Yeah, I mean, and Ryan and Anthony can both attest, we pull guns out of the safe and it's like, I'll clear it. Okay, cool. Hand it over. And then they'll clear it.
And then before,
it's built into your brain. You just have to do that before you can feel.
Yeah, I don't even generally handle a firearm without like going, okay, I don't even know, like knowing full well that it's clear.
Yeah, I know
watching it be clear,
but
I can't even hold it without making sure the action's open or that knowing full well that I've cleared it. But I would rather be that way than to trust somebody, who may not know, clear it and maybe not. Maybe they miss a cartridge. Maybe there's something in there. You don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting a little off topic. We can do a little podcast about gun safety, which would probably be a good topic.
I feel like this topic has led us to a lot more topics, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, we definitely can talk about a lot more.
Well, how much time we got, Lou, on over
there? We're about an hour and 15 in.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're getting close to the end. I'm assuming. You two, what would be the number one caliber you'd want? Like Gucci caliber. Gucci caliber. None of this like 9mm or something like that because it's most effective. Yada yada. No, Gucci.
like to fix up.
What does Gucci mean? I'm sorry.
Gucci as in like outlandish or. You never heard Mr. Guns and Gear say that?
Anyways, I think. If you're talking, I'm gonna have to break this up into 2. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I speak English, so
I cannot give you one caliber and say it's got to be pistol and rifle.
No.
For me, really quick.
Okay.
Would be 1911, so it'd be a 45.
Yeah.
Because you can, quote unquote, Gucci a 1911 out.
You can.
And they're really pretty guns.
Yeah.
And I have a really pretty one. I don't run that mil-spec stuff, so.
Okay.
And for
outlandish, bro.
I'd say 308 for a rifle.
That's it. Man, come on, bro. Think outside the box. Go for it. Right.
I'm just talking about the more things you can do with them.
Mil-spec 45. Mil-spec 5.56.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
And third caliber, which is technically a gauge, 12 gauge, bro. Come on.
And to be honest with all these listeners, I believe Anthony is asking this question so that we can ask him that.
That's Anthony, mainly what it is.
What caliber would you like to Gucci out the most?
Is it a verb?
Is it a verb? Yeah, I don't even know how to use it.
If I could,
I'm sorry.
If I could, in a perfect world, I would own a 338 Lapua, and I would do some ultra long range with that thing. In a perfect
sniper.
world. Mind you, that's like $20 a bullet or something.
Not what is it, a 450 Shy Tech or anything like that?
Oh yeah, those are badass too. No, you gotta think. You go long range. Like for instance, I'm doing the Creedmoor soon, the 6.5 Creedmoor. Once I get that build going, I actually talked to Teddy about this. Doing like a little overnighter in the desert. Doing some long range shooting. What do you think about that? Anything?
Anytime we go shooting is fun.
All right.
But I don't need anything special to do it.
Anyways, so 338 Lapua and then 460 Magnum.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So that answer might give the listeners a little insight as to the way Anthony thinks.
We're definitely bringing him on for the high-end gun topic, right?
Oh, definitely.
So
you would get boring answers from these guys.
What do you mean boring answers?
I would get a Springfield mil-spec and a Remington Mossberg 500.
You guys want to revisit the cigar before we close out?
Yeah. Mine. I've just had the worst time keeping this thing lit.
Mm-hmm.
Same as last time.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like I've been puffing on it somewhat consistently, a little slower than I generally do too, which is, I don't know. I have no idea. Flavor's all there, not nearly as strong as I was expecting. I'm really, really far into the last third, to the point where I'm probably going to be burning my fingers here soon. And I'm really not picking up too much more of a bite or too much peppery.
You got the urge to put it down yet?
Oh yeah, I've
okay.
had the urge to put it down for a little while.
All right, Anthony, what do you think?
I'm digging it. Pretty. I could probably finish this down to the nub.
As for me with the construction thing, obviously a little bit of an issue. I had to relight a couple times, but I haven't had as much problems, I think, as Ryan has had.
I've had to relight.
Yeah, it might be because we were talking a little more too.
I've been putting on this thing pretty good.
It could be, yeah. And you smoked yours down pretty good.
Yeah.
But it can't be the way it was kept because we bought these in a controlled environment. I mean, these are as fresh as they can be.
Right, yeah. So that's why I was thinking it's got to be a construction issue.
Yeah, so, I mean...
And we've all, to varying degrees, we've all had to relight and all have had issues with construction.
Yeah, that's true. And how you guys doing with the whiskey? I've
My
been
whiskey's
done with mine for a while.
Yeah, I've been done with mine too.
Did you had your second one kind of neat, Anthony?
I've had...
Do you prefer it neat as opposed to on the
I
rocks?
think he had a third pour too.
I had a third part of it, yeah. I drink my whiskey like Ryan smokes his cigars.
Actually, you smoke your cigars faster than I smoke my cigars. So I think you drink your whiskey like you smoke your cigars.
Do you prefer it neat or on the rocks or?
I would probably actually for this I'd probably ask for a cube because it is nice to have it cold. Mm-hmm. But watered down would not do this thing justice.
Yeah, so I would say Stones, honestly.
Yeah, that would probably do the.
I don't know. I think just a tad bit of water would do it some good.
Okay,
maybe the big cube.
So maybe a stones to keep it cold, and then maybe one ice cube to mellow it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, if you did the sphere, it would probably do that. Give it just enough to mellow it out and keep it cold.
I've noticed that about some of them. Some whiskeys that I've had in the past, like some are just like I would say Gentleman Jack is smooth enough to you don't need a lot of ice in it. You know, it's just nice to have it cold. So that would be a perfect whiskey for Stones.
Yeah.
And then there's just some that you just put too much ice, man, and then you lose a lot of the flavor that it had.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think this was really, really good whiskey. I didn't know what to expect at all.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Usually with some of them that we've had, it's pretty obvious. Like if either I've had it before or I've had something of a similar like variant of it, especially with the Jack Daniels family. They're all pretty similar with a few varying degrees of difference. This, I had no idea what to expect. I was pleasantly surprised with how good it was.
Yeah, I would definitely drink this again.
Oh yeah,
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I would like to try it a little bit different way though next time, maybe with the Stones or maybe with the.
We'll have to get some spheres.
We'll try it. We'll let everybody know. Maybe we'll revisit this in another podcast.
Yeah, I think so. With the spheres.
But yeah, so thank you everybody for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram at Smoke the Podcast for both.
Yeah.
At Smoke the Podcast.
We have been getting a lot more feedback too since we've been asking for it. It's been awesome. We appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Please continue. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. And this is Smoke the Podcast signing off. I think we discovered a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We got to make notes on everything. Dang, dude, you're smoking that thing way down, huh?